and even lessons. So, in today's session, we'll be chatting with the amazing Juliet Ehimuan. Juliet Ehimuan is the country director leading Google's business strategy in West Africa. She was named by Forbes as one of the top 20 power women in Africa, by London Business School as one of the 30 people changing the world, and featured in the BBC Africa Power Women series as well as CNN Innovate Africa. She's a thought leader and a leading voice on innovation, transformation, and leadership. She has received numerous awards for outstanding contribution to the digital space in Africa with over 25 years experience, primarily in technology, oil and gas, and new media industries across Europe, Middle East, and Africa. Juliet is an executive leadership coach and a member of the Forbes Coaches Council. She is the founder of Beyond Limit Africa, a leadership and organizational capacity building initiative. She holds an executive MBA from London Business School, a postgraduate degree in computer science from University of Cambridge, and a bachelor's degree in computer engineering from the great Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife. Everyone, please welcome Juliet.
Thank you so much, Christiana.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for accepting this invitation, and it's so great to have you here, Juliet. Really great to have you here. Without much ado, I will start by asking questions around leadership. And that's because I reckon that leadership is one aspect of life you're passionate about. And that's exactly where we're going to kick off from this evening. So why are you so passionate about leadership? Why is that the case? Why do you even have an initiative dedicated to that? Why is it so important to you?
Great. Thanks again, Christiana. And just to say hello to everyone who's on this webinar. It's great to be spending this time with you. And I look forward to this time together. So leadership for me is really important because it really fuels a lot of our approach to things. And my philosophy about leadership is that leadership starts with self. Just as charity begins at home, you cannot lead others without first mastering the ability to lead yourself. And so for me, leadership, taking that lens, focusing on oneself to start off with, is about being a champion for your own life, being the captain of the ship that is called your life. And I think that's very important for every human being to do, to be very deliberate about how you are steering the ship. And then, you know, from that space to be able to inspire others, support others, and also provide empowerment.
Right. Thank you. That was very insightful. And one thing that jumped out to me is being the captain of the ship of your life. And so I'm just going to ask a question at the back of being the captain of the ship of your life. So when you say be the captain of the ship of your life, at what point did you realize, or did you actually become the captain of the ship of your life?
I would say it's an ongoing process, right? And it's, I think it starts with having a clear vision about what you want to achieve, because for you to achieve anything, you need to know what it is you're going after. And that sets the North Star, that this is where I want to go. And that's always my starting point. I usually encourage people to be conscious about creating a vision for every aspect of your life. Life exists in different domains. There's career, there's family, there's your physical well-being, your finances, emotional well-being, your different aspects of life. It's important to think about each aspect and consciously articulate that picture of what you want to have in your life, because then for you to steer the ship in the right direction, you need to set what that direction is. There's a saying that if you don't know where you're going, it doesn't matter which road you take, which is really speaks to the importance of having a vision. And that's instrumental in you being the captain of the ship called your life. And that's an invitation I would offer to everyone on the webinar, if you haven't clearly articulated your vision, do so, and also write it down. I'm a firm believer of taking things out of your head and into the world by actually writing things down so that you can visualize it and you can just keep it top of mind.
Absolutely, I agree with you. So as a follow-up to that, seeing that you have over 25 years of experience with varied career, culminating to the C-suite position which you are now as the director West Africa Google, how would you advise young people to break into corporate leadership?
That's a really good question. I think I would talk about three things. The first would be it's very important that you, wherever you are, you start by making sure that you are giving your best, that you develop a reputation as someone who delivers, someone who gets the job done. So if you're in an organization right now, do take every opportunity to stretch yourself and make sure that whatever assignments you get, you give the best to those assignments. Sometimes I talk to people who say, where I am now is not where I want to be. I feel like I should be doing something else. But the reality is that where you are now is what you have right now. Right? If you want to go to the moon, you have to start from where you are now. And where you are now offers you something. The last thing you want to do is to be coasting, which some people do, coasting, just feeling like I'm demotivated because this is not exactly my ideal picture. Where you are now offers you an opportunity to learn, to grow, to make a big statement about who you are. And you never know who's watching. You never know what's around the corner. So that when the opportunity comes that is probably more in line with where you think you should be, you'll be a lot more ready. So if you're in an organization, that would be, for me, that's the first thing I would say. Make sure that you develop that reputation as someone who gets things done. The second thing would be seize every opportunity to learn and grow. Life is a constant process of development. It's important that, on a year-on-year basis, you actually see how your skill set is expanding, how your leadership ability is expanding. The organization you work with, your understanding and your knowledge of the organization needs to expand. We talk about organizational agility, understanding the organization, the culture, knowing how to navigate the organization, speaking to leaders within the organization, getting feedback, things that can just really help you to grow and develop within the organization. And then the third thing I would say is just really being deliberate about your personal branding. Now, that's a tricky subject because in my mind, personal branding is the intersection between perception and reality. You need to start from the reality, right? You really need to start from ensuring that you have something to offer, you're offering value, right? You're giving your best, you're getting the results, etc. The last thing you want to do as well is to focus so much on the perception at the expense of the reality, creating a perception, packaging yourself in a way that is not grounded in anything real. That's not sustainable. That's not going to serve you in the long run. So just really focusing on adding value and then making sure that you are actually able to be visible for the work that you do. You're able to showcase that value in a constructive way, and that you're able to communicate at the right levels within the organization. And I would say as well, if your vision is to rise up into leadership position, then it helps as well to learn from existing leaders within the organization. If there's someone that can mentor you, right, and just really help you stretch yourself and rise up to the demands that are required for leadership within the organization, that can be helpful too.
Right, those were really great points. And one of the ones that really stood out to me is to seek to establish a reputation. Seek to establish a reputation of someone who gets things done within the organization. And the other point, there were about 5 of them that you mentioned. And the other one that also stands out to me is organizational agility, the ability to understand, what's important in the organization, speaking to leaders in the organization to get a view of, how what you're doing in line with the values and the goals of the organization. Thank you for those very insightful points. And one of the points that you stated is going to lead us to the next question. You said being deliberate about your personal branding, which is between reality and perception. And so my question regarding that is, what is the most intentional thing that you have done as a leader that has helped you in your career?
That's a very interesting question. So I would say a few things. There have been a few pivotal moments in my career. So one was so very early on in my career, I was working in oil and gas. I was working at Shell in Nigeria. And I always had an intention to develop myself further. And so at that time, I got an opportunity to pursue graduate studies at the University of Cambridge. And I left the job, the comfort and security of that job, which was a good job, to undertake graduate study at Cambridge. And that subsequently opened a different set of doors and a continuum in technology. So that was an intentional step that I took in line with my broader vision. Also, further down in my career, at a point I realized that I needed to get a business degree. I was right in the throes of professional work and entrepreneurship. And I decided to go to a business school, and I went to the London Business School to do an executive MBA. That too opened a new set of doors and informed the rest of my career journey. So I would say I've had some pivotal moments that have really come with going out of my comfort zone, stretching myself, but also being informed by a deliberate intention to get to bring my broader vision to life.
Thank you very much for that. That was very insightful. So it's been taking those deliberate steps to go to school as it when needed, even living the comfort of a supposedly good job, you know. Okay, that's good. And the next question will be, given all the decisions that you had to make, would you say leaving your first job in oil and gas is the hardest decision you've ever had to make in your career? Or, you know, if that's not it, can you share with us what the hardest decision that you've had to make is?
I would say the hardest decision was actually leaving. Actually, that was right up there. That was right up there because I was taking a risk. I was leaving the comfort of a secure job and venturing into the unknown. So that was would be very much up there. And the second would be exactly what I just mentioned. That's when we're talking specifically about my career, and that is leaving Microsoft after 6 years in the organization. I spent 6 years working at Microsoft in the UK. And I had 3 different roles in the 6 years. I had a great career in the organization. But I had a passion for entrepreneurship. I had a vision around, doing a lot more with technology and impacting African leaders in a certain way. And so I ventured into entrepreneurship, left the comfort of that job. That too was a very, very hard decision because it was the first time I was moving from a very structured environment. And, from graduation, my career had always been in very structured environments and I had been on a very predictable path. This was the first time, my first time of just really, giving all that up to try to start something new. So that was pretty risky, but it was a good decision.
Right, understood. So my next question will be, given all of this transition that you had to make, how you had to move from oil and gas to, tech, to Microsoft, and then Google, how would you say that, so on one of the interviews of yours that I watched on the internet, the one with BBC Africa Power Women, self-belief was one of those things that you said were important to life. They were one of the 5 lessons of life that you listed. Given how you had this 25 years of experience in your career. How have you been able to overcome the imposter syndrome devil or demon? Because it's right out the alley of many young people in these days. And given that self-belief is one of those things that you strongly believe in, and looking at how long you have this career for, how have you constantly defeated this demon with self-belief?
That's a great question. And I think that's something that a lot of us struggle with at different points in our career. So if you're feeling that way, the good news is you're not alone. You've got company. I would say that we're not growing unless we find ourselves in roles, positions, and opportunities that are just beyond our current abilities. Opportunities often lie just outside and beyond our comfort zones, right? What some might call imposter syndrome is simply that recognition and realization that you've reached an inflection point. It's important to nurture self-belief, to remind yourself that you worked hard to be where you are. And there have been times in my career where I've had to have conversations with myself to remind myself that, you actually didn't do badly in school and you've come this far. Surely you can crack this. Sometimes it's important to have those kinds of conversations with yourself, because we all have this mind chatter that goes on and on. And it can be a tool for empowerment or a tool for really beating yourself up. So I usually talk about limiting beliefs and empowering beliefs. Limiting beliefs are all the negative things we tell ourselves about how we're not good enough. They'll soon find me out. Oh, I'm just lucky to be here. I don't really deserve to be here. I am not computer savvy enough. I'm not a public speaker. Therefore, I can't really stand up and make my point, and on it goes. But on the flip side, empowering beliefs are things that lift us up, conversations with ourselves that lift us up. For example, I may not have the skills right now, but I can learn. This is something that, I talk about, very often. So I would say that, it's important to keep your eyes on your vision, because the vision is often bigger than, whatever position you just attained. And as long as you believe, you can believe, the larger yet unrealized vision, then it makes it easier for you to accept that the growth that occurs on the path is deserved and expected.
Thank you so much for that very profound response. Again, you've mentioned vision, the need for a vision. As long as you have a vision, then it's easier to navigate the path. So I will then ask my next question, which is very related to the vision journey. Given how long the vision journey can be and how, very unplanned, and, many things can come on your way and you just would not know or have not planned for them. Can you name a person that has had tremendous impact on you as a leader and as you walk this vision journey? Maybe someone who has been a mentor, maybe somebody who has just helped you as you go along on this vision journey, and why and how did this person impact your life?
So I've been very fortunate to have different people in the course of my journey that have inspired me in different ways. And what I've observed as well is that I pick up different things from different people. So someone may inspire me just by the way they do presentations, maybe the way they communicate. Someone else, perhaps the way they get things done. So I do remember while I was at Microsoft, my manager at that time, he was just really effective at getting things done. And he was also great at building rapport within the organization. And I just really learned a lot just watching how he did things. And also in my current job at Google, one of our regional leaders, he's someone who's very authentic. That's something that I find very inspiring. He's very authentic, and also he's got huge capabilities and also a sense of humor. So I do find different inspiring things in different people.
Okay, thank you for that. So my next question would be, what is the one characteristic that you believe that every leader should possess? Off the top of my head, I can mention those 5 things that you said at BBC African Power Women series. But if you were to pick just one trait that you think every leader should have, what would it be for you?
So interestingly, the BBC series was really about just different tips for success. When you talk specifically about leadership, I would say self-awareness. I think a healthy dose of self-awareness is very important in leadership because it helps you to get a sense of the impact that you're having on people and on your environment. It also ensures that you can get out of your own way when it's necessary. So I always encourage people that it's good to get feedback if there are different 360-degree feedback systems, etc., to be able to get feedback on an ongoing basis so that you just ensure that how you're coming across to your teams and all that is exactly what you intend.
Got that. Thank you. So self-awareness is key, and it's very important for a leader. And let me also add that self-awareness is the first step to being a leader. That's what I hear you say in summary. So we're going to shift a bit from you. We're going to shift the focus a bit from you, from what you have done, from what has happened in the last 25 years, and just shift towards what you do now. And so the first question would be, why did you start the initiative on transformation and leadership, the Beyond Limits Africa initiative? What inspired you to start it? What did you hope to achieve with it?
Yes, so I'm very passionate about self-leadership and transformation. And one of the interests for me about technology is just the empowerment it provides. So for me, technology is a means to an end. And I'm very fortunate to be in an industry where, the tools and platforms really empower people through the power of information, expanding beyond borders, growing your businesses, etc. All the power that technology really brings. So that's my excitement about technology. So I'm very passionate about just self-leadership, being a leader in your own life, being your best self, personal effectiveness, being the best you can be. And so I created the Beyond Limits initiative as a platform to share that with people, and also a platform for coaching and mentoring. Through that platform, there have been a number of masterclasses, discussions around just really achieving results in your life and getting ahead in your career, in your business, etc. Interestingly, in July, I'm going to kick off a Beyond Limits Bootcamp, which is a 3-month program of transformation. It includes videos, it includes monthly webinars, and just ongoing conversations. And I invite everyone to join. You can get more information on social media. I'll be posting a lot of this information on my social media pages at Juliet Ehimuan. So I welcome you to connect with me and be part of that journey.
Right. Thank you for that. Participants, please check the comment section and the chat section. Kristen is on there putting Juliet handles, so you can follow her on social media to get access to all of this information and much more that she's willing to offer in the terrain of leadership. So the next question that I would ask is, considering the current situation, how have you been able to manage and thrive at your career through tough times? Given the COVID-19 situation, for instance, what advice would you be giving senior professionals here who are listening to you, who are experiencing uncertainties in this period? What would you be saying to them?
Yes, I think this period has really been challenging for a number of people, and it's really gotten us to rethink and just recalibrate how we interact with one another, how we do business, and all of that. I think one thing that is important, and I'm very conscious of the fact that I'm talking about vision a lot, but the first step is really keeping your vision alive, right? Now, because really the vision doesn't change for the most part, right? The path to getting there may change, right? So just keeping that alive. And then on the recognizing the signals, the changes in the environment, changes in customer behavior, and thinking about, well, given all these changes, how do I need to adapt? What do I need to do differently as an organization, as an entrepreneur, etc.? And within organizations, this is a time to step up and take the mantle of leadership, because there's a reality around digital transformation as an important part of the new normal. The fact that people are favoring more online platforms and tools. Organizations really need to think about digital channels to reach customers. They need to think about automating business processes, even supply chain, all of that. Now, you can play a very important role in helping your organization navigate the current terrain. And doing that proactively. This situation really calls for people to step up, right? And provide that innovative capability or vision for the organization. It's important to also look at, in the space of all this and in the process of trying to adapt, where are the organization's strengths and where are the low-hanging fruits, the opportunities. What I've found, my personal experience through this crisis, I'm in an organization that is a lot where remote working, video conferencing, et cetera, is an integral part of our DNA. So it wasn't a terrible adjustment. We were able to just carry on working very quickly after just a mild adjustment. And however, this situation has forced everyone to think consciously. Where we took meeting up for granted, where we took those kinds of interactions for granted, just thinking consciously about being deliberate at creating those connection points. And it's actually created opportunities to have conversations with members of the team and my colleagues that we wouldn't ordinarily have in the course of several weeks, in the throes of going in and out of meetings, etc. Right? Conversations where we actually even share what's important to us, and opportunities to just understand and connect better with colleagues. So that's interesting, and it's been great for me to also see people just really stepping up to be creative around navigating the current situation. So what I'll say is, this is a time that calls more than ever before, just keeping that end goal very strong in mind. Then the path may change, right? Figuring out what is that new path, adapting as required, and keeping your radar on to keep absorbing and understanding the signals from customers, from competitors, from the marketplace, and making sure that you're ahead in terms of innovation and problem solving.
Thank you, Juliet. I absolutely especially like the last point about keeping your radar on, because that is how you ensure a good product fit for your market or for your target market or your audience. I find that very, very insightful. Thank you for that. So let's move to habits. Let's move to your habits as a leader and as a C-suite leader. What are your success habits? What have you done repetitively or consistently over the past 25 years or more that has helped you to be a success, or that would say has helped your success culture?
Sure. Well, I would say three things. One is just being prepared. Try not to be caught unawares. It's important to do the work in just being prepared and getting ready to stay on top of things. The second, I would say,
before you move from that, I just want to dwell on that a bit, and it's important for me to do that because prior to this conversation, I did have a few chats with some of the people in Google, and one of the first things they said, I said, when you think of an adjective, when you think about Juliet, what's the first thing that comes to mind? And one thing they said is, she's never caught on fresh, for lack of a better word. She's always prepared. She's never unprepared. She has the right thing to say at the right time. So please, you need to actually dwell on being prepared and how you are prepared all the time?
So, well, I don't know if I'm prepared all the time, but I think just as a habit, I think it's important, one, to show up to things on time, so that you're not flustered in the throes of your rush. Maybe you have a meeting or an interview, right? You're not flustered trying to, really get there on time at the risk of running late, etc. That you give enough time so that you get there, you get yourself settled, and you take in the environment, and you're able to just be calm and be on top of that. Being prepared with, if you need to give a presentation, to whatever audience, maybe a small audience or a large one, making sure that you actually know your material, you go over it. You're not on stage or, at a meeting and then you're, struggling because you don't really know your material. Those kinds of things. I think it's just important that, whatever assignment you have, just make sure that you get into it and understand the material enough that you're well prepared for whatever questions come, whatever happens, whatever is thrown at you. So that's one thing. The other I would say is just managing your time well. Time is I say time is the currency of life, because when we're alive, what do we have? Time. And you can spend time the way we spend money, or you can waste it the way we waste money. Well, hopefully we don't waste money. But I think how you spend your time really says a lot about what you're able to accomplish, your level of productivity in the day, understanding your patterns. So, I'm a morning person. I like to get up early in the morning because, the weather is, everywhere is cool. In my mind, my brain is fresh, and I'm in an industry where things change very rapidly. So those morning hours are very important to me. It's time for me to, go through journals, reports, catch up on email, and just get a head start to the day. It's important to understand your patterns throughout the day. When are you most productive? And how, in the course of the day, what are those nuggets that you can really leverage? And then the third, I would say, no man is an island, no woman is an island. It's important to learn from others. You can really get a head start as well by learning from people around you that have been successful in accomplishing whatever it is you're trying to accomplish. So be bold in reaching out to people and asking questions, asking for help, asking for support, or even mentorship.
Thank you very much for those insightful answers. I have a follow-up question to some of the things you've said, but before I go to that, I just want to tell the participants, please send in your questions. Use the question and answer tab. In a few minutes, I'll be going to the question and answer session. So please send them in. I have a few questions already, but I'm happy to take on all of your questions and we'll see how far we'll go with that. So you had said something prior to this time when you said keep your radar on and feel free to absorb information and be open to new trends. And you mentioned it again as part of your day-to-day. So when you say keep your radar on, how do you as a person, how do you do that? How do you ensure that you are ahead of the trend? How do you ensure that you are informed about your technology, for instance, which is your space? How do you ensure that you're always ahead of the trend and the population generally?
This is a very important point, because we have had cases of organizations going out of business because they didn't exactly have their radar on. They weren't sensitive to changing customer behaviors to understand that they needed to innovate. And so the competition came from nowhere as a surprise, and they were out of business. From my perspective, I try to stay on top of trends. I mentioned earlier that I leverage my morning hours to just stay on top of things, reading journals, articles, just scanning through reliable information sources. So there are certain sites that I trust and that I constantly go to for information. Also internally, there's a wealth of information that we have access to. So just creating that time to be able to just scan through and get a sense of, what the news is, what's top of mind, what the trends are, because that also informs what direction you need to go, what needs to change in your approach, or even in your ability to support your customers as well.
Thank you for that answer. And so at the back of that, I have another question, right? So you talk about reading journals, reading books, and just reading information from reliable sources with respect to your space. What book or what journal do you think you've recently read, or even over time in your life, that has had the most impact? It could be in terms of leadership, it could be in terms of what you do on a day-to-day in your role as a country director.
Sure. So if I talk just broadly, the book that has had the most impact on me, and it's probably not what you'll expect, is a book called Loving What Is. It's a book by Byron Katie. It's really about self-leadership. It doesn't call itself that, but by and large, that's what it's about. It's about self-leadership. It's loving what is. And it's really about questioning some default thoughts and assumptions that we have. So when you think about innovation, it actually plays a role there, because for you to be innovative, you need to ask questions, right? Question the status quo, look at things differently, right? Rethink situations and products and processes, all of that. In your life as well, sometimes we get into default patterns or mindsets where we just have an answer for a ready answer, a default answer for everything, right? But sometimes it makes sense to actually question our assumptions, question our default responses, and see, is there a more effective way to respond to this? Is there a more empowering way to respond to this? That's what the book is about, right? Some questions that you really ask yourself to, and challenge yourself to just really shape your thinking. It's by Byron Katie, and it's one of the books that has had the greatest impact on me.
Right, so Loving What Is by Byron Katie. So everybody, you should go and get that book. I'm gonna get it after. Okay, so the next question will be, given that you've said time is the currency that we spend in life and time management is very important, I imagine that you also have some free time that you deliberately, apportion to yourself and say, this time is free, this time is leisure time. How do you relax in that free time? How do you use your free time?
So I'm a great dancer.
Oh, no.
A lot of people don't know or don't expect this, but
Okay.
I'm sure if anyone has seen me on the dance floor, the person would validate what I'm saying. I love music. I love to dance. I love writing. I actually do write poetry and prose. And I also, I love a good movie.
So I saw a question that popped up just now, and I just have to ask.
Salsa or Zumba? I do salsa.
Oh my God! I'm somebody.
And I love it.
Okay, interesting. Okay, thank you for that. I hope I'll be lucky to be in some location with you someday where I can actually catch you dance. I'm going to do a video.
And I'll drag you onto the floor with me.
Okay. Thank you so much for this very honest and authentic answers. The next question will be that it's a bit more techy. It's a bit more technical, which is, while I was preparing for the session, I checked online and I saw some data that I thought was interesting. So it says that according to LinkedIn mail data, millennials in tech are receiving the most email outreach from recruiters. So a lot of recruiters are reaching out to millennials on LinkedIn, and this pattern has remained consistent over the last few years. Do you think there is a connection between the vibrancy attitude of millennials and this pattern? Do you think there's something with the millennial traits and the tech space?
I think that's quite possible because millennials are more likely to be visible and active on social media platforms. And increasingly, those engagements get noticed by recruiters and others. More and more recruiters go to social media platforms to look for candidates. And so it would make sense that people with more activity and history of engagement may attract more engagement in return. And my advice to people on social media platforms would just be very conscious and very deliberate about your use of those platforms. Leverage them to your advantage. Leverage them to just put out what's authentic about who you are and what you're about. And also, they can be leveraged in a big way for learning. Following people who have walked the path that you're trying to walk, learning from them. Joining groups that really inspire you, groups of like-minded people, and then more broadly, there's so much information, there's so many tools available online. There's hardly anything you want to do you can't find information to help you get started on the internet, either a how-to video on YouTube, going on Google search to search for information. There's just so much now. So I think, as you're planning your career trajectory and growth, it's important to also think about how you leverage. It's a digital world today, right? So whatever you do, the digital strategy needs to be an integral part of that as an individual and also as an organization. But talking from the individual perspective, ensure that you are leveraging these digital tools and platforms to your advantage, to your full advantage.
Thank you very much for the very insightful response to this question. And of course, we can't have the director of West Africa Google and not ask the questions about tech, future of work, and what is in there for young professionals like us who are listening to you right now. Given more than ever, the COVID era helped us to see the need for a more tech and advanced world, especially in Nigeria. What would you be saying to young professionals listening to you in terms of how to align themselves? We cannot stop talking about this. I feel like for every audience we have to keep emphasizing the need to, get technologically inclined. So what would you say to young professionals listening to you right now in terms of aligning to the tech space, aligning, getting used to and being able to use technological tools as young professionals and even in our day-to-day lives? What would you want to say to us?
So I would say that we live in a digital world. We no longer talk about going online, we live online. That's just the reality of who we are today. We're in the fourth industrial revolution, which is a digital revolution. It is consistent across the world, around the world. And so it's not even an option anymore. I always say digital literacy today to society is what basic literacy was years ago, right? Where that was just a way of you getting into the field, right? Right now, it is digital literacy. That's the level playing field. That's the starting point. And I think wherever you are, ensure that you are developing yourself to maximize the digital tools that can enhance your work. So if you're at the starting point in your career, the requirements are different. It's about leveraging various tools to be able to find information, to be able to help you with getting productive faster. For example, say you're a professional, you need to do a business plan. Maybe you're an entrepreneur, you want to do a business plan, or you're a professional, you need to do a marketing plan. You don't have to start from scratch. There are templates online that can help you get up to speed very quickly, right? And so there's no point, you do yourself a disservice if you don't lean in as much as possible and find out, don't just stay within your comfort zone. Find out what other tools are available. What are your colleagues using? What are the technology trends within your industry? And as you move up in your career, if you're at the leadership level or management level, think about what tools can aid your decision-making process. What tools would be more effective in employee engagement and management, those kinds of things. So the beauty about technology is that it's applicable and can add value to any sector, oil and gas, agriculture even, and it can be applied across multiple sectors. And so my challenge, invitation to everyone is that, whatever level you're at, try to make sure that your use of technology is actually at the right level for that position.
All right, thank you very much, Juliet. Again, I'm just reaching out to the participants. I see some of your questions already, and I would like for us to send all of our questions now so that I can look at them and read them out to Juliet. So one more question for me before we go to the Q&A session. And the question is, so far in your career journey, what has been the most inspiring thing to you? What has been that one thing that is been so inspiring, and every time you probably want to say, oh no, I don't want to get up this morning, you look back and like, for this reason, I'm going to get up and do this?
Some of the very inspiring things I experience in my career at the moment are just the impact of the technology on businesses and people's lives. That's one thing I'm grateful for in the work that we do at the moment at Google, because I've seen cases of people who were unemployed, who could not afford to further their education, perhaps beyond secondary school, get access to online tools, were able to learn new trades, and set up their own businesses. I have many such examples in mind, people that then became employers of labor, helping to contribute to job creation. People that would have been liabilities to themselves and to their families, now creating opportunities for others. That's what inspires me. So at the moment, we have an initiative. We pledged to provide free digital skills training to 10 million people across Africa. Now, the reason for this is because we understand that we understand the power of the digital economy, and that when people have the right digital skills, they can do great things. They can develop themselves, they can find and get access to jobs, they can create jobs, they can take their businesses beyond borders, they can get discovered, and the list goes on and on. And so we've invested in offering that training, and there have been some great success stories coming out of that. A number of initiatives as well, training developers, supporting technology startups. We've seen vibrancy in the technology entrepreneurship space in Nigeria and across Africa. And they're creating jobs, they're creating fantastic innovative solutions to local problems. And we're even seeing emerging technologies like machine learning being used in healthcare to really make a difference, being used in agriculture to boost yield. And so, when you see these examples, they are very, very inspiring, and they're, a great motivation to just, get up and keep going.
Right. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. At the back of that response, there is a question that I saw, and I'm just going to tie that to what you just said now. And this question is by Isaac Oladipupo, although you did not put it in the question and answer tab, but it's a very timely question. The question is, what is the future of EdTech in Nigeria and in Africa? And I'm going to sort of tweak that slightly and say, I'm excited about the 10 million target for that you have, And so this question then says, for education technology, what's the future in terms of rural Nigeria? What you think is the future, and what should young people listening to you right now be doing to help that future come to pass?
So the future of EdTech, that's educational technology. Well, sorry?
Yes, education technology.
Okay, just checking that I heard you right. I think one thing we've seen from this pandemic is the fact that the future of education, to a large extent, is really digital, and we've seen classrooms going online. We've seen a lot of Google Classroom and other platforms being leveraged by educational institutions in a big way. And I think this is incredibly powerful, and I think this is the direction that we're likely to see even beyond this phase of the COVID pandemic, because already there are lots of educational materials online. There are entire curricular online that people can have access to, even in organizations. There are learning management systems that employees can use to develop themselves without having to wait for when they can travel somewhere and sit in a classroom and get trained, or those types of models. I think more and more education is going to be, you know, what you need when you need it. So bite-sized chunks that you can just go online and consume, you know, a modular based education. And I think that's a great way to really stay up to date. I think more and more our educational institutions, they have started, and I think it's important for this to expand even further, incorporating e-learning into how people get trained in these established institutions, because that also has implications around you know, ability to update materials just on the fly, being relevant and up to date, and just also, you know, preparing students to be a lot more work ready, because they're acquiring a lot of the immediate skills that employers will be looking for. So I think definitely the direction of education is a bigger integration with e-learning, learning management systems, and it's what would be great, and I know a number of stakeholders are working actively on this, is to be able to take connectivity to rural areas and make these platforms we're talking about accessible more broadly, making tablets, for example, accessible to students, so that, you know, very early on, they can leverage these educational materials and tools and be able to develop themselves, you know, very quickly. We have you know, some great stories of very young people doing amazing things. In Nigeria, for example, two brothers, about 9 and 11 years old, developed a browser. This is because they were exposed to technology from a very young age. Now you can imagine the minds of young people. They're unbounded, right? And so when they have that exposure early, they would be able to actually create amazing things. But at all levels, I think the power of just e-learning and having access to you know, such materials globally can really make a difference. And that's the direction of the future.
Thank you very much. So the questions from the participants have started dropping in, and I have one very interesting one here. The person has asked this question anonymously, and the question goes, good evening. Please, I would like to ask, how can we handle leadership in work environments when you have to lead people who are older than you by age? Our male counterparts and people who have stayed longer than you in the given institution. Did you get that?
Yes, I did. What I heard is, how can we lead in organizations when the people reporting to us are older than us?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Essentially. So I think depending on what cultural context you're operating in, that can be challenging. If you're in a culture where there is the, you know, the culture of, you know, respect your elders, etc., and you know, have a certain relationship with your elders, then that might be a challenge in terms of just how people perceive you or their expectations, etc. But, you know, within an organization, it's important to be professional. If you're in a position, you're there because you have the competencies to be there. It's independent of age, right? And so it's important to establish credibility in that role. I would say that it's also good to be sensitive to the cultural context that people are operating in, but not to be limited by that, right? So just being sensitive to that in the language of communication, etc. But by and large, I think as a leader, it's important for you to establish credibility. it's also important that your communication is clear about expectations, about what is, what obtains here, like what's acceptable, and how we work, that sort of thing, to create the context for the work environment. And then, of course, to show as a leader, you have a responsibility as well towards your people and their development. And so even if the people reporting to you or someone reporting to you is older than you, as a leader, you're still responsible for that person's overall growth and development, right? And so it's important that you demonstrate that, like you are actually there to add value and to be of service in that context. And I think when people see that you know your stuff, right? So you establish that credibility, they see that you're on their side, right? You're actually here to and willing to support them in growing within the organization, and that not anything goes, right? You also establish the boundaries. People would tend to conform.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We're exactly 1 hour gone. We have a few questions next from the participants, about 3 or 4 of them. Are you able to answer these questions?
Sure.
All right. Thank you very much. So there is a question here from Pat Salami. Pat Salami said, my question is, what is your typical day like?
Okay, I like that question. So I do get up early. I think now everybody knows I'm a morning person. I do get up quite early, and go through just getting ready for the day, and that also includes some reflection, etc. And I start my day pretty early. And I also, because I start early, I also try to get through things. So my day would usually involve meetings, and a lot of at this time, it's all video conference calls or webinars like this one, and phone conversations, etc. I also spend some time just supporting my daughter with homeschooling, which is obviously the reality of this time. So I have a 5-year-old. And then I try to end my day at a reasonable time. Depending on the day of the week, I could have exercise thrown in there. Then there's family time. I mentioned that I enjoy a good movie. So sometime in the evening, there'll be just some, downtime, relaxation, dinner, etc. I would say in general, those are some of the more constant elements to my day. Of course, no 2 days are the same. So just really depends on what what's top of mind and what I'm working on. But in general, that's the vibe.
Right. Thank you very much. So just one more question, and then we'll wrap this up. And this question is by Okonle Abulimen. Apologies if I'm not pronouncing that right. And the question is, how do you showcase your achievements without passing a negative perception of being too forward?
Well, I think with everything, your intention is important. People see through. So there's just something, I think, because as human beings, we're very alike. We can pick up signals. We can read even what's not said. So I think your intention, first and foremost, if the intention is to show off, however you try to disguise it, it's likely to come off that way. So if your intention is just, maybe you're trying to encourage someone else, or maybe you're genuinely just trying to, talk about what you've been able to do for certain reasons, perhaps to just educate people about it, to inform, to ensure that there is clear communication, whatever the objective is, if it's, I just make sure that the intention is constructive. There's a valid reason why you're doing that, and then just share authentically. I would be less concerned about, because you can't control what people think. You can't control even when people tell you that they think you're great. The truth is you don't know what's in anybody's mind, right? What you can control, what you can know for sure, is what your intention is, what you're about, and what you believe, right? So I would start from there. And then, regardless of what people think, etc., because if you're really allowing that to inform how you act, you might find out that you're not living your life, you're living someone else's life. Or things that you really, in your core, want to do, you hold yourself back from doing because you're thinking about how would it look? Would it be approved here? Am I going to come across as something else, right? So I would say, first of all, declare about your intention. And if you feel that your intention is positive, right? You're not doing this to make anyone else uncomfortable or to show up or whatever. You're genuinely trying to, share what you've done for good reason. Then I would then just, go ahead and communicate.
Thank you so much, Juliet. It's been such an insightful session. Thank you for taking time to actually answer all of our questions. Thank you to everyone also for joining in. I hope you had an amazing time during the session because I did. And I have a few things jotted down. And I'm definitely going to read the book, Loving What Is by Byron Katie. So again, like I started, this session was brought to you by Global Shapers Lagos Hub, and we are a community of young individuals who are making social change in our society. So please follow us on our social media platforms at Lagos Shapers to learn more about what we do and how we do it. Also, please follow Juliet on our social media platforms as well. Kristen has posted a handle in the chat session, so please go there, pick up a handle and follow her to be a beneficiary of the amazing things she's doing with Beyond Limit Africa. That's it. Yes, so thank you again everyone for joining in, and I hope you have a very fabulous weekend. Thank you, Juliet, for coming to this session, and thank you for making time once again. Have a very wonderful weekend, everybody. Thank you, Juliet.
It's been an absolute pleasure. You're very welcome. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.